1. A little background first. I, 26 and female, own 2 small rescue dogs. A 6-year-old male miniature pincer mix, Bobby, and a 2-year-old female Chihuahua Yorkie mix, Mel. Bobby is a fat, grumpy old dog, but a real love bug when he knows and trusts you, who is really fearful of strangers and hates children. And Mel is the polar opposite, so she'll greet strangers when on walks and thinks children are other dogs she can play with. As she's only 2 kilograms, 4.4 pounds, really cute dog. I usually don't discourage it, since it would be really hard for her to hurt even a small kid anyway. Although fearful and grumpy, Bobby will usually be quite chill on walks and can even walk off leash, since I've been training on desensitizing him to strangers for the past 5 years. So unless people actively try to pet or interact with him directly, he won't pay any mind to those around him. The problem is, since Mel likes to greet strangers, people will often make the mistake of thinking both dogs are friendly and try to pet Bobby, but stop and go through the steps and make him comfortable, crouching to be at his level and let him sniff their hands before petting when I say he's fearful. He only bit a person once, a guy doing renovations in my apartment, who decided it would be a good idea to stomp his feet at a fearful, cornered, barking dog. But never drew blood, since it's just a warning bite. Now, finally, to the story. I usually bring my dogs to a little plaza near my apartment when I don't have the time or energy to go for a full walk to the park. So this was one of those days. The plaza is maintained by the neighbors so that people can bring children and their dogs, but since Bobby doesn't react unless people interact directly with him, most neighbors know me, and at that time of the day there isn't really a lot of people there. I didn't think there would be an issue. Well, I wasn't counting on a wild Karen appearing. I arrive at the plaza, scan the area, and since there were just 3 other people and no children, I take the leashes off and call the dogs to walk near me, to one of the patches of grass. Just then, Karen and her crotch goblin, a 6 to 8-year-old boy, were crossing the street to the plaza. I paid no mind since they were on the other side of the plaza and didn't appear to take interest in me or the dogs. Mistake number 1. The dogs begin sniffing the grass while I'm on my phone answering a message for my boyfriend, when I hear the typical squeal of an entitled kid. While I wasn't looking, Crotch Goblin had apparently seen the dogs and ran from the other side to me. So Mel, as always, was excitedly greeting him, wiggling her tail non-stop and giving him kisses. The kid was a little rough petting her, as most children are, so I asked him gently to be a little more careful since she is such a small dog. The little shit huffed, as if I had insulted him and his ancestors, and ran back to his mom. I shrugged, and while thinking it was odd, just let it off as him being sensitive or something. Mistake number 2. I decided to put the leash back on Bobby, since now there was a kid around, and walked to another patch of grass further from them. But just as I'm about to move, I hear the dreaded "Excuse me" behind my back, and turn to face Karen. She must have been in her late 30s, early 40s, no signature haircut, although her hair was short and a face-scrunching scowl on her entitled snout. "Yes," I say, shortening Bobby's leash so that he doesn't get any ideas, since I was already feeling him tense up with that aggressive approach. Mel, oblivious and cheerful as ever, was already running up to greet the bitch, but I stopped her with a finger snap and picked her up. "My baby says you won't let him pet your dog," she states, scowling even more, which I didn't think was possible. The little shit was hiding behind her legs. "No, I just asked him to be gentler since she's so small and he was being quite rough." I reply, a little annoyed at this point with her tone. I'm usually not fazed by confrontation, especially when it comes to defending my dogs, so I stand my ground, and my calmness is apparently what sets her off. "No, he wasn't. Plus, if you were so worried about your little mutt, why wouldn't you let him pet the fat one?" she asks, tone nasty as ever, pointing at Bobby, and before I even answer, she turns to CG and says with a sickeningly sweet voice, "Go on, sweetie, you can pet the doggy." Before the kid can approach him, though, I pull on the leash, putting myself between Bobby and CG, then firmly reply, "He didn't ask, and Bobby doesn't do well with kids, he's fearful, so no, he can't pet him." At this point, Mel is going crazy in my arms, wanting to play, but I correct her and add, "I would let him play with her," I say, pointing at the little mutt in my arms, "but as you're both being entitled little shits, I'll be leaving now," and then proceed to attach Mel's leash as well, while putting her on the ground. Mistake number 3. Ignoring my and my dog's warning, CG runs around me and tries to grab Bobby from behind. Now, if you've ever dealt with dogs in your life, even the ones that aren't reactive, you know how big of a no-no it is to grab a dog you don't know from behind, especially when they're not expecting it. So as predicted, Bobby yelps, growls, and turns to bite whoever dare to touch his butt. And the only thing that stops that from turning into a bloody mess is the fact that I was already bent over to put Mel on the ground, so I was fast enough to pick 10 kilograms, 22 pounds of grumpiness up, and away from a soft little devil paw. Finally realizing I was telling the truth when I said my dog doesn't like kids, the Karen snatches her spawn, now screaming and sobbing, by his wrist, and Banshee yells, "Get that thing away! What would you do if my baby had gotten hurt? You shouldn't walk an aggressive mouth like that!" And that's when I finally let loose. You see, I'm usually a really patient woman, so you really have to prod me to get a reaction. But that bitch really was trying. You should have listened the first time when I told you he doesn't do well with children, he's fearful, and what your entitled little shit did would set off even calm dogs. I'm within my rights to walk my dogs in public spaces however I like without your crotch gobbling trying to grab them. I didn't exactly yell, but my voice is quite deep for a woman, and I was speaking loud enough that anyone in the plaza could hear me. My voice was seething with anger, but I'm guessing my face was serious enough to at least give her pause. She shrieked, "If you ever come near my baby with that monster of yours, I'll call animal control on you," before scrambling with her kid to get away from me. Then I got home, gave my poochies treats, and told them what good dogs they were. Never saw the bitch or her spawn again, thankfully. 2. When I was in university, I bought myself a longboard to get around campus. A lot of the students were doing it, and I thought it would be easy. Well, after a few falls, I changed my mind and switched to a bike. I figured that if I wasn't going to be using it, I might as well sell it to someone who would. I posted it on Facebook Marketplace at a good price, and had a few people interested right away. The first person to contact me was happy to meet my price and available to meet right away. I updated the listing to pending offer and drove out to meet the buyer. She liked the board and purchased it with no bargaining. When I got home, I had a message from a high school girl asking if it was still available. Sorry, no, someone just bought it. No, you have to go get it back. I love this longboard, it's perfect for me. Sorry, it's sold. I am no longer the owner, I don't have it. Ask for it back. Tell the buyer that you changed your mind. Offer $20 for the trouble, and I'll up the price. I wanted to end the argument, so I said I'd follow up with the new owner and ask them if they would be interested in selling it to the high schooler a little more. I contacted the buyer to let her know that someone was inquiring about the longboard, and was willing to pay a little more. I asked her if she'd like the contact details in case she wanted to make an easy $20. The new owner thought about it and said no, she wasn't interested. Fair enough, so I contacted the high school girl to let her know I checked with the new owner and they were not interested in selling. This is your fault. I feel like you've just kicked me in the gut. You're a terrible person. I wasn't in the mood for further chatting and blocked her email. Fast forward 1 week, and I had an email from the high school girl's mother. My daughter tells me you promised to sell her a longboard but changed your mind and sold it to someone else. That's unacceptable. Nope, your daughter asked me if I could sell her a longboard after I had already sold it to someone else. The posting noted that it was pending pickup when your daughter reached out to me. Sorry for the confusion. No, you will get my daughter that longboard. You're going to compensate her for the pain and suffering you've caused. You'll be giving the longboard to my daughter for free. Look, lady, I don't own the longboard anymore. Someone else bought it. Then go get it. I know the dean of your university. If you don't deliver the longboard to me by the end of today, I'll get you expelled. Do you really want to lose your chance of having a good job over a longboard? You'll do the right thing or else. I stopped responding because that was absolutely ridiculous. I didn't block the email, though, and the next evening I had another treat. I went to complain to the dean. Your time at the university is limited. While I was there, my daughter saw someone riding her longboard today. How dare you sell it? You'll be sending us $500 for a brand new one. After all, you won't be needing the money for tuition next semester. My address... And then she gave her address. You better deliver that money or else. What's your phone number? Text me, and then she gave me her phone number. When you're coming. Well, that night I went for a little ride and drove by their home. I took a photo of the 2015 BMW 228i convertible in their driveway and posted it on Craigslist for $500. I asked that the interested buyers text the EM's number and promptly blocked her email. My friend texted a few days later to ask about the car. Apparently EM is responding to everyone thinking it's me, and demanding that they come with the $500 and a new longboard for their little angel, but that she's not selling the car. The dean never called me to his office. I graduated without issue. 3. For a bit of background, I used to work in a cafe during my last year of college. It was okay work, and the customers were generally okay to deal with, barring a few exceptions. This entitled dad was one of those exceptions. It was a standard shift of me going around to various tables and cleaning them after people who had already left. It wasn't too bad, just a few empty plates, cups, and silverware. It was fairly busy that day, so I was going around from table to table, clearing them as fast as I could so the next group of customers that came in have a clean place to sit. I go to the upstairs area to clear those tables when entitled dad stops me to ask a question. He basically wanted me to watch his kids, 2 girls who appeared to be toddlers, while he went down for another coffee. Remember how I said the cafe was busy that day? There was not only a long line to get into the cafe, but there was also a fairly long line to order as well. The cafe was fairly popular. Seeing the line and knowing how long he'd be gone, I told him that I couldn't watch his kids as I had to clean more tables, and watching them would make it hard for me to keep up with the other tables that needed cleaning. He then got an attitude when I told him that I couldn't watch his kids for him. This was about 3 years ago, so I can't recall exactly what he said, but it was along the lines of, "Are you serious? I'm just going to get a coffee. Do you expect me to leave the kids alone?" Wanting to be understanding, I asked him if he could just take his kids with him and wait in line with him. Apparently that was the wrong thing to say, because he just dropped it altogether. Now I thought that was the end of it, but oh no, dear listener, this man had to get one last jab in before he left. When he came back upstairs, I noticed that he had left. He just left his kids to do whatever to our tables, and then he dipped. I know he left because the upstairs area also has a door that you can exit from, and I didn't see him downstairs. Pages from coloring books were torn out and thrown on the floor. There were crayon markings on the table, as well as chocolate stains which are a pain to clean. I'm not sure if he let them do that on purpose or not, but the least he could have done is tell them to not leave their trash on the table and the floor. For context, I've had other customers come in with their kids, and surprisingly, the parents made an effort to not let their children trash a public space. When they were done, they'd at least stack their plates and leave any trash or utensils on top of the plate. Edie just left the table in disarray, all because he couldn't be bothered to take his kids to wait in line. 4. I used to work at a family fun center. Think Dave and Buster's, but no alcohol. We had laser tag, a mini roller coaster, mini golf, and lots of games. We also had a mini bowling alley as well, which is the subject of this tale. When you put a credit on our bowling machine, a disclaimer message pops up on the score window. It has all the safety instructions, which are also posted in large signage near the ball return, and warnings about not putting your hands where they don't belong, like the ball return chute. It also has a message at the bottom. If you agree to the rules and understand these safety precautions, press the button to start the game. By pressing that button, you now assume responsibility for your own and your kids' safety. I was working the floor, both manager and lead technician, and I noticed a boy crying when my head was sticking in some arcade cabinet. I came out just as the kid's dad pushes the pager button, and I walk over. I start asking what had happened, and turn the pager off. I say to the kid, "So what happened, buddy?" The kid showed me his hand. It was slightly pink, but didn't look seriously injured. He was still crying, so I moved behind the counter and got him a free slush drink, both to hold and soothe his hand, and to help calm him down.
He was playing at the bowling alley and the ball came racing down and crushed his hand.
My goodness, I'm so sorry that happened. Can you just wait here a moment? I need to go grab an incident report from the back.
Sure.
I went back and got the sheet of paper and a pen, and walked back out. Before I left the office, though, I told the general manager to pull the footage from our cameras at the bowling alley within the last 20 minutes. "Okay, sir, I just need some information first." He was amiable as I asked for the general info that we needed to file a report with Home Office. In fact, it was a pretty normal exchange the whole time, up until we were finished with the report.
"Can I get the number for your corporate offices?"
"Sure, no problem, sir."
"Thanks. I appreciate how well you're handling this."
"These accidents happen, sir." I handed him a business card with our Home Office number on it.
"Thanks. Glad to know who will pay for my son's hospital bill."
I'm now in caution mode. "Excuse me, sir?"
"Well, yeah. Your machine hurt my kid. You're going to pay for his hand if it's broken."
"Sir, did you notice the safety disclaimer when you started the game?"
"No, it never showed me anything."
Now, I'm not an idiot, and I was taught how these machines were set up by our company VP, who is a very knowledgeable technician, and works harder than any man I've seen. When we first installed those lanes, it didn't show the safety screen. However, another store found that setting and relayed it, and since then every store has had it configured this way. This change happened months before the incident. I walked over with him to the machine, and his other son was still bowling, and the mother was on her phone texting. I used my employee card to swipe a credit on the machine and showed him the disclaimer page. Sir, it says here that to start the game you accept the terms, and pushing the button to play is agreeing to it. We are only responsible if there is a malfunction in the machine, not if your child is injured by accident. The dad proceeded to go absolutely ballistic and started to scream and shout at me about how he was going to sue us and put us out of business, and that I had no grasp of child safety. I apologized and told him to hold on for just a moment, and I will call the company VP right now, and he will direct me on a course of action. I went back into the office to dial from the direct intra-office line, and my manager was laughing at the screens. I looked up, and she had been watching the recording. The mom had been texting the entire time, the dad was more focused on the smaller kid, and the kid who got hurt was standing around idle after he finished his game. He picked up a ball and started to roll it around in his hand. Then he decided it would be a good idea to roll the ball up and down the slope of the ball return. And that's when it happened. Another ball came running down and smacked his hand between the two balls. I smirked a little bit, because I'm a terrible person. But the main thing we saw was the terrible parents. The kid started to shake his hand and do a little hop dance, but the mom only glanced up from her phone and didn't seem to care. The dad looked over and then went right back to finishing the game with the younger child. It was at least 6 minutes before he even picked his kid up and looked at his hand, then left to go to our service counter. I called the VP and relayed everything that we just saw on the camera. He told me to head out to the prize counter and bring the customer over, and he'd call that phone. I returned, and the kid was fine now. His hand was a little bruised, but that was to be expected. The phone rang, and I handed the receiver to the angry dad. What the VP said must have really rattled him, because I could see his blood boil. He shouted some obscenities into the phone and threw the handset back at me, which I barely caught. Sir, okay, you need to calm down. I need you to leave the store, now. The dad grabbed his kid and got in my face, but before he could yell, one of the mall cops happened to walk in our door. It was one of the outfacing doors to the parking lot, and was a shorter walk than the anchored department store. The mall cop barely got a "what's going on here" out before the dad quickly shut up, got his family, and left the store. 5. This just happened tonight. I got off work and wanted to take my family to see that new Marvel movie about the 10 Rings. I don't do well in super crowded places due to PTSD. I see them as soft targets and try to avoid them. However, my boys have been wanting to go to a movie, and I wanted some stale popcorn and to have to pick my teeth for the next several hours. I also love movies. Because I always have a clear view of the entrance and know my training and tool, along with lighting, gives me an advantage to use my tool before someone with bad intentions. We go to a movie theater in downtown Fort Worth and get our tickets. The ticket guy asks the usual. "What task does your dog perform?" "You can take my socks off at the end of the day. He calms me down and keeps me from killing folk." He laughs and lets us head on up to the food area. My boys are running around like the world is ending, and I pull out the Irish dad voice. They shape up. We order our food and head to watch the movie. It's an oddball Marvel movie, and it's 8:45, so we almost have the place to ourselves. I like movies when I'm alone, or nearly alone. I'm the kind of guy who analyzes the injuries, judges gunplay tactics, and tends to laugh at awkward moments. Yeah, I'm that guy. For example, in Mystic River, the whole room was dead quiet, and they just said something tragic, and I laughed and said, "No shit." Example 2. Olympus has fallen. When Morgan Freeman becomes president, I said out loud, "Well, I'm God, so..." Bruce Almighty. Anyway, back to the story. We get situated in the nice comfortable seats, and of course Spike, the dog, gets his seat between my wife and I. The movie is doing what movies do, and about 10 minutes into the movie, a woman and child walk in. As they cross in front of us to get their seats, the boy announced, "Look, Mom, a pit bull." No, he's an English bulldog. The mom literally yelps and says, "That's worse!" They turn and exit the room. At this point, I know exactly what's about to happen, so I tell my wife and kids to stay as Spike and I exit. I didn't want to worry my kids or let Karen cause a scene in the room, so I figured, meet the BS head on. I go out to hear Karen with the manager and police officer about a vicious breed of dog being close to her seats. Now, Spike and I have already met these people and I allowed them to pet him. Spike is so lazy, you know he's excited when he gives you 4 nub wags and a snot rocket to the face. That's it, no jumping, bouncing, or wagging. 4 wags, a snort, and he's done. I also chose this theatre because it's small. The downtown area, though, has lots of people. It also feels very enclosed in close quarters. It also has cameras everywhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it has ShotSpot, which is microphones set to pick up shots. Anyway. I approach the conversation and say, "Hey Bob, hey Joe, what's going on?" Not their actual names. The officer, who knows me by name, and I know his first name, replies, "ALP, nothing, this woman is worried about Spike." "I'd be more worried about me if he wasn't here." Jokingly, I say.
"He's not even a real service dog, probably. He was sitting on the chairs. Bulldogs are vicious dogs known for killing bulls."
At this point, I get to grin and give her an education lesson about the current version of the English bulldog. Arguably the worst breed when it comes to guarding and health. Current bulldogs are absolutely nothing like their badass ancestors. When I finish my monologue, the first to speak is of course Karen.
"Absolutely none of that is true except for fighting bulls, and that's a fake vest I could buy at Walmart."
The manager pulls out his phone and says,
"Okay, Google, tell me the history of English bulldogs."
His phone starts to quote a web page with similar facts as what I just explained.
"How dare you make light of this situation? My kid's terrified."
Her kid is currently petting Spike's rump and Spike is loving it. Karen yanks her kid away roughly to the point that he made that weird throat sound one makes when your bones go one way and liquids go the other. Spike is very protective of children to the point it does compromise his training. For instance, if there's a stroller close by with a fussy baby, he will go sit by it and stare at the parents like,
Hey, 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 your pup. It's making that sound. Hey, get your pup. Yeah, the pup in the cart. Fix it."
If he sees a kid crying, he will go about 5 feet from it and paw his own face, which is Spike talk for,
"Hey, OP, get that human pup to pet me so he shuts up."
Where I then ask the kid's parents if the kid would like to pet Spike. Anyway, got off track again, I apologize. So Spike spins and does a dissatisfied huff, which of course sets Karen off even more. "Ma'am, I'm pretty sure you just hurt your own child and now he's crying and rubbing his arm where you pulled him. He's small enough that you could pull his arm out of place. He's maybe 5 years old."
"Don't tell me how to raise my kid."
"How about simply not abusing your kid as it upsets me, my dog, and everyone that sees it?" Officer and manager jump in before Karen can respond.
Manager says, "Come this way, ma'am. I'll refund your tickets and you can come back another day." Ma'am, go with the manager. And OP, do you have any documentation about Spike's status?
Yes, it's right here. I pull up my documents on my phone in PDF format. It's my medical doctor notes.
Oh, Dr. Blank.
"Those documents are probably fake."
"No, ma'am, he has the same doctor as I do, and I recognize his signature." "Ma'am, you need to leave. You've caused enough of a scene."
Side note, other than the group of us and the ticket guy downstairs and the 2 working the concession stand, it's empty.
"I'm not leaving. He needs to leave."
"Ma'am, the manager has been kind and offered to refund your tickets and allow you to return another day. He's now asked you to leave, and it's my duty to make sure you leave. You can leave accepting his goodwill, or I can escort you out."
"No, ma'am. Talking time is over. It's time to walk."
"This is ridiculous."
But she leaves with the manager down the stairs. The officer and I talk a bit, and the manager returns.
"Sorry about that, OP, but thanks for coming out so we didn't have to keep arguing. Sit tight real quick."
He walks over to the concession stand and talks to the kids working. He returns and says he's giving me a pretzel for my troubles. When it's done, the kid brings what looks like a pizza box. Inside is the largest pretzel I've ever seen. I take it and return to my family, having missed quite a bit of the movie. I split the pretzel between the boys and Spike. He ends up dripping ropes, but enjoyed the rest of the movie. Thank you all for listening. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to the Impractical Proudness of Parents. Hi Pop. Episode 73. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like, subscribe, and comment. Okay, I have a little birthday shout out to do. This goes to Lovely106. You may have seen Lovely pop up in the chat stream here and there, or possibly in the comments on videos. I don't know how old they are. They didn't mention, so we'll keep that a secret. But lovely, I hope you have a very nice birthday today. I think it's today. Yeah, it is. It's today. And before we go, I'd like to, if I may, sing happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear lovely. Happy birthday to you. All right, and I think we'll wrap things up there for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.